Hey guys, Avery Carl from the Short Term Shop here. I wanted to welcome you into our 10-episode deep dive on the Outer Banks and Carolina Beach, but also to let you know that we have some supplemental materials to this on our website for you guys. It's called theshorttermshop.com, and there we have a section where you can look at properties in these markets, see what the current purchase prices are. You can set it up to save a search for you and email you anytime a new property in those markets in your price range comes out. We also have the AirDNA data, thanks to our friends over at AirDNA for this market. So you can use those two things to analyze. We've got a calculator for you there too to help tie it all together. And if you guys are ready to maybe start talking to an agent in this market, you can email us at agents@theshorttermshop.com and we will connect you to our expert agents in this market. Or maybe you're not ready to do that, but you just want to hang out with us more, and that's cool because we want to hang out with you too. And we have a Facebook community where you can do that. It's called Short-Term Rental, Long-Term Wealth, same title as my book. And it's just a community of 60,000 of our closest friends who are sharing best practices and just kind of hanging out with other real estate investors. So it's pretty cool. We hope to see you over there. And last but not least, if you have questions, you want to talk to a real person like myself, it will be myself actually, and Luke. We have an open office hours every Thursday, and you can sign up for that at strquestions.com, and you can ask us any questions that you have about short-term rental investing. But now we'll get to the episode.
Short-term show special episodes. This is the beaches of North Carolina, multiple beaches, basically the entire coast. And we're talking Outer Banks and Carolina Beach and everything all the way down basically to Murray. So lovely to have you guys. Let's start there. Maria, what's going on out there in the middle of the ocean?
Did you say Meg? Was that Meg or Joe?
Yes.
Meg. What's going on out here? We are having a fantastic summer. Getting a lot of great feedback from owners who've bought with me in the past. Keeping busy, beautiful weather this week. We've had some nice wind. It's hot, but the wind has been blowing some nice breeze, and the ocean's actually cool. Joe, is the ocean? It's going to be warmer where you are slightly, but I've been getting reports that the ocean's a little bit chilly, but that's a good thing on a hot day. You want to hop into the cold ocean?
Nice. Yeah, I'm Joe Perlman down here in the Carolina Beach market, home of the warm water. We don't have the cold water that Meg has apparently. So if you want to be warm while you're surfing, hop down here. Excited to be here. I love this topic, talking about numbers. We're going to have a blast. But yeah, guys, the season's rocking and rolling. Had a pretty good run so far and excited to see what's going on.
Wait a minute. Is there surf? Is there surf in your, can I surf in your area?
Okay. So it's nowhere close to as good as Meg's surf.
It's we like have international surf competitions.
Meg has like the best surf in the world. And so, no, it's not. You can surf here. I try to do it every week and I fail miserably. I do a lot more paddling than I do surfing.
Really? You go out there on the board and everything?
Yeah, man, I go out there on the board. What do you think I do down here? I live at the beach.
I live at the beach. We don't have waves where I live, but I was just in San Diego and everybody was surfing. So I'm fascinated with that.
Fly out here. I'll get you on a board, man. We'll have a blast.
How long? I mean, what is it? Okay, if I'm going to go out there, how much time of my day do I need to dedicate to that?
You need to dedicate. It's like that one person who loves golf and they'll like chase that feeling the rest of their life. That's surfing, man. You got to dedicate your entire life to it. You're not going to be out there for an hour. It's going to consume you.
But it seems like these guys, I go run, right? So I was in the dark and these guys were already out there or at least getting ready anyway. And it seemed like they must have jobs. San Diego, I was just there. It's freaking expensive. So they have to have jobs of some sort. So do you go before work?
Oh yeah, you get out there, dawn patrol, man. That's when the wave's the best. It's whenever it's like just the sun's starting to rise and the wind hasn't gotten on it yet. It's nice and like crystal clear and smooth and glassy. And if we do have waves, which we don't have a ton of them down here, but we do get them. Nothing like Meg, but if they're out there, yeah, man, we're tearing it up.
And we got real deal surf.
You broke up there, but yes, I've got a legit surfboard. You have
real surfing in your market?
We have real surfing in my market. And actually here you want to have a west wind because that wind pushes the waves up higher. They don't collapse quite as quickly. It does bring the black flies when you have a really strong west wind, but they're not here.
Wait, hold on. Wait, what do you mean? What does that mean?
When you have that west wind, there are some areas that it will kind of blow those biting flies that are awful, but it's very, very good for surf conditions. So you want that wind kind of pushing the wave because it stabilizes it before it falls. So you actually get a longer ride. Is my understanding. I should preface this by saying I'm not a surfer, but I do live in a surf community, and this is what I hear. But yeah, we've got, our shoals are always kind of moving. So the surf spots, they're always kind of changing, and there's like a underground language of like where to go and the good spots. But yeah, we are a big time international surfing destination for sure.
Okay, cool. All right. And John Bianchi's here. He's a numbers junkie. What do you say? Where do you live? And have you ever been surfing?
I've definitely been surfing. I love surfing. I don't do it all the time though. So it's one of those things where like whenever I can get there, I'll go do it. I had a cousin that surfed and he taught me that early in the morning is when the water's nice and glassy. You get out there. Anyways, I like to surf when I can. But yeah, so I live in Canada. I actually live in a small beach town as well. We don't have any waves though at all, unless it's like a super windy day. No surf conditions. I don't know why we're talking so much about surfing, but we all live in a beach town, so I guess that makes sense. But anyways, I'm the Airbnb data guy. All I do is live and breathe Airbnb data. I'm the head of data for TechFester. I have a couple of free courses as well out on YouTube, and I have a software coming out pretty soon around Airbnb data. And all I do is live and breathe Airbnb data. So that's me.
Cool. All right, that's what we're talking about today. About numbers in general. How do we figure out how much money it's going to make? Who wants numbers? Let's start with like size of house versus gross income, I guess. Does anybody want to throw some numbers at us?
Oh man. I mean, like just taking it right off the gate, what I typically see. And so I'm really excited to hear John's perspective on all this, because what I typically see with the larger beach houses is it really depends on the individual beach town that you're in. But just as a general blanket, we're going to throw it out there. If you're buying a property that's a 4-bedroom plus, at least 2 bath, you're going to generate somewhere between 75,000 all the way up to about 125,000 gross, depending on the individual beach town. And access to the beach is still super important. And so I've got different individual beach markets where the gross income's higher or lower, but it depends on that. And so that's kind of the general blanket if we got to throw some numbers out there.
So you guys are going to know way more than me. And I was just studying this market all morning data wise to try and like understand it. And so I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions, but this market seems like there's a lot of nuances to it. Now, I mainly looked at the Outer Banks area, and I can tell there's a lot of these different little beach towns all the way up and down the coast, right? And I saw that some of like the more expensive ones would have been, let me just pull it up real quick so I can list them off. It's going to say, so Kill Devil Hills and like Kitty Hawk seem to be like where you'd get these like really expensive kind of markets or homes. But then there's homes doing well all the way down the coast, but then the homes start to get cheaper as you get to these like smaller kind of markets. It almost felt like that's where you would start to see the better cash flow in those areas. If cash flow was like your main goal. I don't know. So that's my take.
Yeah, my experience is that those more southern beaches, they're a little bit trickier to get to. And then like the much more northern beaches, they're not going to get quite as much occupancy. But honestly, you are going to see a change in your price point, though. You'll be able to find something, in Salvo, that for, let's say, $750,000, that's going to cost you closer to $1 million in that Kitty Hawk, Kill Devil Hills area, because there's so much more access. For here, there's so much deviation on price points and, what you're going to have to put back into the property just because the ages of the houses, this is generations worth of people who've been living and visiting the Outer Banks, who's updating the properties and who's just taking the cash and then they're dumping, these used properties that need a lot of work. So it's a mixed bag, but I do like Joe's numbers. And I would say that's going to be comparable here. If you're offering, a decent house with nice amenities, and if the 4-bedroom, I'm going to agree. You're looking at, 70 to 120.
So quick question on that. Meg, which market is yours? And Joe, which market is yours? And then I got a follow-up question.
That is
a really great question.
No,
that is great.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're covering what we're calling the Carolina Beach market. So it's everything that's from Atlantic Beach all the way down to Ocean Isle. So I'm covering everything that's not the Outer Banks. So all the data that you ran has nothing to do with my beaches.
Well, I did. So I did look into specifically Carolina Beach, and I have like a quick take on that as well. But I got obsessed with with OBX. I kind of got like into the weeds.
I love it.
So
I love it.
It's tough here to yes. So I'm Meg Minitry. I'm the Outer Banks agent for the short-term shop.
Gotcha. Okay. So now I have like an understanding of who I get to ask the questions.
Yeah.
But
I'm so glad you jumped into the CB data though, because that's where all my personal investments are. So we're going to throw it against the wall.
Right. So you're looking at Joe's houses.
Perfect. Yeah.
Pretty much.
You're Carolina Beach, you're saying, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So I've got 10 units on Carolina Beach. And I got 6 units in Curry Beach.
Gotcha. Okay. Carolina Beach actually seemed like way more straightforward in comparison to OBX. From a data perspective, it seemed like there was a lot of consistency in the data, like a very standard sort of type of home. It seemed like a more built up town in comparison to a lot of like the OBX area. And so it created some more consistency from what I was seeing. And then it seemed like there's a lot of duplexes, like side by sides, right? Or even triplexes and whatnot. And it seemed like that's where there was a good amount of opportunity, because obviously from what I was seeing, the people that are making the most money had the pools and were on the waterfront. But then where I would see some people making like a decent amount of money would be on like half of a duplex, right? Like that a 3-bedroom could be making like 75,000, and obviously the other half could be making 75,000. And then it seemed like the property itself did not cost a crazy amount, so it looked like a good cash flowing opportunity. Is that
wow? You literally just laid out my entire investment strategy for the world. That's incredible. Like I buy like small multifamily properties that, since I didn't have the capital to buy oceanfront or second row with large pools, I was buying single family homes with ADUs or duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes, and then turning them into multiple units. And you can then like run the whole thing as one big one, or you can do all the individuals. So that's to the T my investment strategy.
Yeah, it seemed like where the money was best for cash flow, right? Just based off of price to rent ratio, right? The amount of revenue compared to the purchase price. So that's pretty cool. But OBX was far more interesting. So here's a quick question for you. When you talk about like a 4-bedroom and make it around the amount that you were talking about there, Meg, like 75 to 100, I think it was.
Sure.
Was that like roughly? Was that specific to a certain location? Was that specific to waterfront, or to having a pool, or to anything along those lines?
Yeah. So I'm thinking when you're looking at those, and again, from Corolla to Nags Head, I'm just going to pick the 5 townships that I've been really with Avery. We really did identify the 5, which is Corolla, Duck, Kitty Hawk, Kill Double Hills, and Nags Head. So when you're looking at those 5, my goal, if it's in the buyer's budget, is to basically stay to the east of the bypass. So depending on how wide the island, the barrier island gets at that point, those are going to run east to west. You may be further back. And that's why you're probably seeing a lot of variation, because we don't have just oceanfront, semi-ocean, and third row. I mean, we've got more than fifth row that will get you to the bypass. And then, of course, you have these homes that have been built, over the decades, which I'm sure that's probably the same in Carolina Beach as well. I am curious how far back the air DNA data goes for the Outer Banks, because we are we are a tourist destination. The property management companies, that's a really big industry here. And I am of the mind that the self-managers, that's kind of a newer thing, like maybe in the last 5 to 8 years that really started. Are you seeing that? Is that maybe what's maybe throwing your numbers a little bit?
Most of the data I'm looking at is just from the past 12 months. Okay. So it's just the past 12 months. And like I think the furthest back that data has been tracked for short-term rentals is about 6 years, max. So there was no one tracking the data prior to that on a mass scale anyways. But yeah, most of everything I'm looking at is like 12 months back. So what I got, I got into the weeds about, was I was trying to figure out, if I bought a property on the waterfront, would it do significantly better than if I bought a property off the waterfront but had a pool? And you know what I mean? Because it seems like those would be your almost 2 different combinations, right? And then would it be cheaper to buy a home that was off the water that had a pool in comparison to buying a property that was on the water, right, without a pool? The interesting thing was that the revenue actually wasn't that much different for a waterfront property in comparison to a non-waterfront property with a pool. right? And I mean, in my opinion, I'm taking a beachfront property all day, but apparently people are willing to pay roughly around the same amount to get a property off the water that had a pool. And then the other interesting thing was that the home prices between those two, that's where it got really confusing, because there's so many variations where you can find like a $2 million home, and then down the street there's like a $1 million home, and you can hardly tell a difference between the two, but there is a difference, right? And then on top of that, there wasn't a crazy amount of homes with pools, but there still was a decent amount. So I think if I sort of summarize all of that, I would probably want to actually try and find a property off the water with a pool. That would be like sort of the first area that I would attack. And then the second area would be off the water, no pool, because that actually intrigued me probably more than anything, was that I was finding a decent amount of properties that were doing around $100,000 that were off the water and had no pool. So I'm always trying to find like what's the most efficient thing for you to buy here for cash flow and be able to like continue to move forward. And that was what was kind of poking out as like the opportunity. And the bedroom counts were all over the place. I was looking at like 2, 3, 4s, and 5s across all the homes doing the best in that area. Anyways, I'm not sure if that made sense what I just said, but do you have any thoughts on what I just said?
No, it actually makes great sense to me. And I'm really glad to hear someone else say it, because, people are like, I just want to know, like, what am I going to make? I mean, if I'm going to spend $1 million, well, how much am I going to make a year? And it's like, man, there's so many variables that go into that answer, and they want me to just spit out numbers. I'm like, we got to go through it. You're going to have to do enemy method. You're going to have to play with this stuff. It's got to be massaged. Like, I can't just throw numbers out because there really are. There are so many things that go into it that do need to be worked through and considered, and those amenities and the features of the properties, and does it have an elevator, and basically everything that you just described is I agree with everything.
Wait a minute, is the elevator common?
In the newer homes, they are common, yes, and in the bigger homes, when you start having multiple families, multi-generational families that are coming, you want to be able to have an elevator. In the bigger houses, obviously the bigger houses are going to have them. You're getting your groceries up and down. You're not making 50 flights up and down, I'm not sure, I can't speak for Joe, but here on the Outer Banks, your standard build is actually a reverse floor plan, and your kitchen's on the top floor. Your bedrooms are in the middle floor, and then like your game rooms, your pool area, all of that's going to be down on the ground floor. So you're hauling groceries up 2 or 3 levels. If you've got a 6 or 9 bedroom house, that's a lot of stuff to be carrying. So yes.
Is there a purpose for that? Why do they do that? Just because it's easier to shuffle the people in and out and sleep downstairs, and then maybe you go up to the kitchen, or any idea why they do that?
I think they like to just keep the hangout spaces separate from, and you typically will have like the owner's suite will also be up on the top floor with the kitchen area. But basically I think they keep like and then you have, if you have the game room on the first floor, just to kind of keep the noise down. And that really there's just one section that is that's where your bedrooms are on that floor. When you're looking at the multi-level properties.
They're all about that view and keeping
Joe, do you guys are you reverse floor plan? Or are you all?
Yeah, we're reverse floor plan, especially for our new constructions. But
it's because the bedroom's not necessary for a view as much as the hang out and drink your beer room, right?
Absolutely. And but John, I've actually got a couple thoughts on it, because as different as our markets are between the Outer Banks and the ones that I'm covering, we also have more similarities than not. And so a lot of the things that you were hitting on, I see across the board with the different clients I'm working with, where you can have a property that's 2 rows back with easy beach access, no pool, and you're still generating 125,000 gross. And it's really, it dials into how you manage it and how you're pushing it. So I have a theory that North Carolina is about 10 years behind all the trends, of where all the trends start in California, they end here in North Carolina, of like pools, like setting your properties up so that they're themed, things like that. Yeah. And so I see a lot of people who have a bunch of success with really normal homes because they're really driving it towards the people who are going for the beach. Is that similar to what you're talking about?
Yeah. Yes. And what you're referring to is the fact that the listings are not spectacular, amazing, beautiful, perfect listings.
We're not very good at it.
No, that was actually going to be the next thing I was going to bring up. So in Carolina Beach, they're a lot better than they are in OBX. In OBX, it was like every single listing I was looking at was taken with an iPhone, and they decided to take it out of focus and then take the photo. You know what I mean? It was just like the listings themselves were subpar in comparison to what they could have actually been doing. Now, Carolina Beach did have some good listings that I would look at and be like, they're maximizing the amount of revenue that they can make from that home through the design, through the amenities, and through the photos, right? So I was like, this is really good to see. And those are the homes that I'm referring to where you can get like a 3-bedroom or a duplex that's a 3-bedroom on one side, 3-bedroom on the other side, and they're making around 75,000 because they're putting together these really good listings. But then in the OBX, it was like every single listing was not done to the max, not like really performing well on how it could be put together. And due to that, they're not maximizing the amount of revenue that they would end up making, right?
You need to go to education with Luke. Learn
Exactly.
how to better.
Well, but that's a good thing. I mean, that's the whole point.
You need
It's
to buy with us
opportunity.
and go to Luke and learn.
Well, yeah, but you could come in and smoke everybody. I mean, but yeah, I mean, it's
Exactly.
like that everywhere, though. You go to the Smokies where there's a million people that know exactly what, Price Slabs is, and they still suck, So
That's true.
That's come hang out with us here on the podcast, and you get rocking and rolling. But anyway, thank you, Meg. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, no. I mean, that's essentially it. It creates for a lot of opportunity, right? And I just see it as one of these markets that has like more than others, right? Where it's like if you can come in and put together a really strong listing, you have even more opportunity than if you were to go to like Scottsdale, which has just like some of like the best listings. And what I always tell people is find a market that's similar to the market that you're in, that is like a stellar market, right? Kind of like a Scottsdale is a really good market, and see what you can pull from that to your market. Now, I don't know what would be like a great example for this, but maybe like the Panhandle would be a good example, because the Panhandle does have some really, really amazing, like great listings. And if you could steal some of the ideas from the Panhandle and bring it over to the Carolinas, I think you could find some amenities and design and features that are thriving over there that could likely thrive where you guys are as well.
Joe, are you seeing that? I mean, you're living and breathing this all day. You've got a ton of units right there on the beach. Do you even look at your enemies anymore, or are they all just, you know what I mean? Are you rolling your eyes at them? What's the deal?
So it's interesting because everything John is saying is like to the T for Carolina Beach. Like we have a ton of just like rock star competition moving in where they're doing what I did whenever I got started. I found the best person and I copied everything they did and tried to make it better. And so they've taken mine and like it's forcing me to up my game and continue to make mine better and better throughout that. So we're seeing that a lot here in Carolina Beach, but it's slowly starting to move into some of these other markets I'm covering. Like Ocean Isle, for example, is starting to go that way. At Ocean Isle, it used to be like you could throw anything up and you would absolutely crush it. Well, now the people who have the pools are doing better and the professional listings, like we're starting to see that creep into some of these other markets. And so you're all over it. But I do have a question, John. So and I'm so fascinated about this stuff, the oceanfront homes. So I see and hear rumors of some of these outliers where you have someone who steps in and does 250, 300,000 gross with a massive home that's like top notch. Did you see any outliers in your data? Because they're kind of the hidden rumors out there of like, hey, this person's absolutely killing it. And we don't see a lot of the oceanfront people who take it to that next level because they don't have to, because they book really well, even with a crappy product, because they're oceanfront. So I'm curious if you see that.
No. So no, I did not. I did not see anybody that was like when I went through everything, the highest that I saw was somebody making 223,000 and he was oceanfront with a pool. That was like the magic. That is the most magical combination you could possibly have to drive revenue, right? But no, I didn't, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And so this is actually kind of lead me into the one thing I wanted to stress about was the fact that the data in those markets is a lot of it is bad. A lot of it is bad data, and it's due to the seasonality. And so it makes it really difficult to find things like what you just asked. Like, are there really these really large homes that are absolutely crushing it? There's a lot of bad data in markets that are very, very seasonal, such as these Carolina Beach markets, and also like the Panhandle, where you're really only having peak season for about 3 to 4, maybe 5 months. And then you're pretty well shutting down for the rest of the time. Right. And the reason that the data shows up so poorly is because the algorithm is just tracking the listings on a daily basis, right? It goes into everybody's listing and it tracks the listing to gather their data. Well, when somebody pauses their listing, it's no longer tracking it and it has to restart. When somebody blocks off their calendar, it looks like a booking and it looks like they're making more money than they're actually making. And so when you're going through this data, one of the ways that I thoroughly check to ensure that it is good data is making sure there's a review every single month for the past 12 months. However, almost every single listing I was going through had almost no winter reviews. And so it looked like they were just shut off. So in other words, it's hard to trust it when you don't know what's going on there and you don't know if the algorithm is actually tracking it properly or not. And so the reason I'm going through all this is because I'm trying to help people understand that if you're going to be looking into these markets and if you're going to be vetting the data, make sure you're really thoroughly looking through the reviews to ensure you have a full-time host there that you're looking at. But I cannot stress this enough, specifically for this market, work with people like you guys to actually understand the numbers from people who actually have listings there. Whether you guys have them or if you know other people that have them and where you have actual proof of those numbers, or if you can find a property management company that maybe manages like 20, 40, 30 listings and are willing to kind of give you a range of how much those properties will make. That I cannot stress enough is what I would be doing if I would be going into these markets to make sure I had my numbers right. So I know you asked me, about the large homes making 300,000. There's no data on it. And then that led me into explaining that the data is kind of all over the place. It took me a lot to find good data in this market. Just throwing that out there. Sorry that didn't directly answer it, but no,
that's so interesting. Like across the board of just like, it screams opportunity to me. Luke, whenever you and I are chatting about like different investments we're looking at, like I'm always trying to go the direction that everybody else might be a little hesitant because they might not have the data. I think it's brilliant.
No, I agree. And I also, you see a lot of these folks that are crushing it with the new fancy listings, but I'm seeing a lot of those guys also still not make a ton of money. I had one the other day where the house was beautiful, totally redone and had exactly what they needed to do with the muffin bar and all this other stuff. And their calendar sucked. Because why? The numbers are number one, always. Pricing is number one. Figuring out how much it can make and what it should make is always most important. I'm going to ask all three of you. I'll let ladies first. What do you prefer as far as for your personal properties? When you're shopping, what metrics are you looking for to decide whether you're going to buy it or not?
I'm looking for the deals. I'm looking for properties that are like down to the studs. I've bought properties that bought a condo, the unit above flooded, the unit below. We hired our contractors, a good friend of ours. He came in, we gutted the entire place. We bought on a foreclosure. We bought stuff on the auction steps. We've bought lots of different ways. But I like to make a property my own. For us, I have found that they do well because we can get them for pretty cheap. A lot of people don't want to take that on. The market now is a little bit different. I'm actually getting a lot of people who come to me and say, hey, look, we'll take a project. So I think that's growing. I think those opportunities they still exist out there for people to come in and do that. They can buy something for a whole lot less and fix it up. And then all of a sudden you have like a brand new built place. But we've done that a handful of times and it's been pretty great. I also do like between the highways, not necessarily oceanfront, but not also up against the bypass. Although I will say I do have one buyer who's on the bypass and he's doing awesome. He's right there on the corner. But it's very walkable to the beach, and they soundproofed it. When he bought it, it was soundproofed, and it's killing it. But that area in between, and it's called Between the Highways, like that's an actual area here on the Outer Banks. It's a great place. Like that's where I'm looking.
All right, Meg likes value add. Joe, what are you looking for?
I look for properties that nobody wants to manage. So I look for all the ones where you can shove a ton of people into a small space. The ones that are difficult from the operation standpoint, like I want 16 people in a quadplex with 8 cars and 10 dogs. Like that's what I'm looking for. And I just like try to keep everyone from killing each other just because they maximize the income that they can generate. But I like the weird ones, man. I like 6-unit motels. I like duplexes, quadplexes, triplexes. As many people as I can shove in there and still give them a great experience.
Those are tough to find here. I will say that I love, Joe, that you do this and that you promote it. And man, they are far and few between.
They are,
but that's awesome though.
Do you go to the properties? I mean, is it like a front desk situation where you're, helping them find a toothbrush and things like that?
It feels like that sometimes, but no, I set them up so that it's fully remote. They're doing it all for their phone. But like it can get a little hairy if you have a small parking lot and you've got, 10 people showing up at the same time. So yeah. It's a lot of online communication, but we deal with it. But that's the one thing I have found, Meg, in some of the larger, more traditional beach houses is there's a lot of these homes that are set up as really large single family homes, but they have like a mother-in-law suite underneath. And so I would, in that situation, run the whole house as like one big short-term rental and then have 2 other listings running at the same time. So I can have like an ADU at the bottom for like couples and whatnot coming, which it's more my last minute booking stuff. So I wouldn't let it be open long-term, just multiple different ways to try and continually have revenue coming in. It's interesting. It's weird. I know I'm weird.
All right. So Joe does the clown car method of rental and
dump them in there, baby.
I wouldn't want anything to do with that, but it's working for him. That's awesome. So, I mean, I'm old school. I'll go and then I'll ask John what he does. I just do enemy method. Really it's no craziness with what I do when I'm it's all yellow pads. That's all it is. I sit there and study my neighbors and I say, okay, this guy's like literally the best guy in town. Let me figure out what he's got going on. How much can I do better than him? This is what I can do better. This is what I can't. And I'll spend like 4 hours on it and just sit there with a yellow pad and scratch. And then I'll decide, okay, can I come back to this house or is it done? It's a lot easier to rule a house out for me than it is to decide to spend more hours on it. But you guys have all seen the Enemy Method videos. If you haven't, obviously the enemymethod.com if you want to check that out. No secret sauce for me. I'm pretty old school. And I just, can I do better than this guy or can I not? And it seems like he's having success. So there we go. John, what's your favorite metric, or maybe do you have one for this particular beach market?
Yeah. So, working with TechVestor, we buy differently than most people. Like we're buying homes that can cash flow, and we're moving at speed and different things like that. So you're always using the 20% rule, which is the price to rent ratio. So we are looking for a home that the revenue would be 20% of the purchase price. So if you're buying $1 million home, it would need to do $200,000 a year. We're all about the cash flow is like our most important metric that we're always looking for. And then of course, we're always trying to find what is the inefficiency within a market, right? So like what's the most optimal thing to purchase within that market, which is kind of like what I've been talking about, where I'm not going to buy the waterfront one, or I'm not going to buy the one with the pool, but maybe I'll buy the one that doesn't have either of those things. And then just make it an amazing listing and really drive up the amount of revenue I can make from that because I bought it for a cheaper price. And so that's the way that we go and look for it. And we use the enemy method a lot. So we're studying all of our competition. We're understanding exactly what amenities are driving the most revenue and why, and then making sure we're adding all of those into our property so that we can maximize the amount of revenue out of each individual home.
Are you able to find on a regular basis a 20%er, and is it in a vacation town? Because that seems pretty steep to me.
So not always in a vacation town. That's actually a really good point there. It's not always in a vacation town. Most of our markets are not vacation markets, and we're actually kind of like, as a good example, we're in this one market where there's a beach, right? So you got like the beach, and the beach would be where all the homes are, and it's kind of on its own little island, but we're on the mainland, maybe like 15, 20 minutes away from the beach. And that's where we find the most opportunity because the homes will be cheaper, but people are willing to drive in as long as they have a pool within that property. So it is very difficult to find a 20%, or more difficult to find that 20% within a traditional vacation market. And so we're not always buying within those markets, but there is opportunity to do that. We have bought over 100 homes in the past 18 months, and they all have had to meet that metric of 20% to 30% within that range. Actually, true, 18% to 30%.
You guys are doing a whole different thing, though. This is a fun.
Exactly.
Nobody that buys these is going to go stay in it or anything like that.
Never.
It's a whole different can of worms.
Exactly.
I think I'm happy with much lower than now. If I can find that deal, I'll take it all day.
Right.
And probably 7 years ago, those deals were all over the place, but the times they are changing. Okay, cool. So you're looking for rent versus purchase price, basically in a percentage.
Yep.
Do you do cash on cash at all, or it's just basically it all factors the same? It's just different math.
Well, pretty well. So the way, okay, if I'm doing it personally, what I'm looking for is a 10% cash on cash at my most confident revenue number. So in other words, when I'm evaluating a property and I look at it, I'm like, okay, I feel 100% confident that this property can make $100,000 a year. It has the potential to hit 120, but I'm super confident it will hit 100,000. And at that number, I want that to be at least a 10% cash on cash at a minimum, right? With the opportunity to go a little bit higher.
And that would be a gross minus cleaning fees, right? So people get confused with that a lot because gross can be somewhat confusing in this business. So what you're referring to is basically gross with no cleaning fees at that $100,000.
Are you saying cleaning revenue or cleaning expense?
Either one. In general, it'd be just basically gross rents.
Okay, so it would be, so my revenue, that 100,000 number, would include the nightly rate and the cleaning fee revenue.
Okay, and my purchase price on that property is how much?
For 100,000, it'd be 500,000.
So 500,000.
Yeah, so if you're making $100,000 a year, it'd be a $500,000 property.
Okay. If you're listening to this, be careful with that. That is very unrealistic, but it's possible. It's possible. Joe, give me some real numbers on your properties. I'm going to hit you over the head here real quick, if you don't mind. Give me a size of a single family home and gross revenue, what you think you're going to make for 23, if you know that, or maybe what you made in 22.
For my like clown houses or like my single family homes?
Let's go with a single family home. You got a 2-bedroom hanging around somewhere?
I do. So I've got a
clown home.
I've been buying the clown homes more recently. And so like I've been doing multifamilies. And so the single family homes I bought were 2019, but they were single family homes with ADUs, 2-bedroom, 1-bath, or 2-bedroom, 2-bath, and a 1-bedroom.
Wait, hold on.
Bath.
You're renting them separately? 2 separate listings? Okay.
Yep, 2 separate listings. So all of my houses are clown homes. That's what I'm getting at is I don't have any just the traditional like freestanding ones. Like I've always bought duplexes and whatnot, but typically out of a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, I'll generate anywhere from 50 to 55,000 gross. I've got a couple outliers. I've got one that does like 75,000, which is nuts. And then each one of those will have like another either 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom inside that property. So I typically take a single family home and a 1-bedroom do anywhere between 35 and 50 typically for me. So I've got a single family home that does about 110, I'd say. And I'm 4 blocks back from the beach. And back in 2019, I paid $500 for it, but it's worth about $800 now.
Got it. And Meg, you're doing more value add. It's a whole different thing for you. Your cash flow is probably the last thing on your mind. It's more net worth, really. Because when you're done with the house, it looks really nice on a personal financial statement. So thoughts there?
So we have done a multitude of projects. We've bought and sold. We actually just converted our last Outer Banks short-term property to a long-term, actually. It's a little different. If I didn't live here, everything we'd own, which is 5 properties, they would all be short terms. There's such a housing crisis here right now. And we had a friend that had a friend in need, and the timing worked out that we could actually convert it over. So as of right now, I do not have any short terms here on the Outer Banks, but our greatest appreciation that we've done over time and what generated the most revenue was absolutely the gut jobs that we rebuilt and then rented. And we had great occupancy on all of those places. We had a condo down in Manio, and we've had a place here actually on the west side that did really well.
Yeah, but so in other words, you can rent that house you have long term because you've already got your money out of it in the equity play on the rehab. So it's a whole different ball of wax there for you. John, have you had any advice for a noob coming into rental real estate in general, in short term? How do I drive myself nuts? I guess let me ask you this way. What am I looking for? Like, how do I even know if I want to buy this house or not? The 20% thing is super overwhelming. It's intimidating, how do I know? Like, this is the one, let's go ahead and buy it.
You have the way that I would feel confident with it is if I were to have 5 to 10 other properties. So that's sort of enemy method, but a grouping of them where you have about 5 to 10 other properties and you can see a consistency in the revenue. So, or some sort of pattern within the revenue. So what I mean by that is, like, say you've got 10 listings and they're all doing somewhere between 75,000 and 100,000. And if you were to review all of those listings one by one, you would be able to understand why one property is making 100,000 and then the other one's making 75,000. Like, it's very clear what the differences are in the size of the home, the location of the home, like the different features and amenities, or maybe the design. You can see that it starts to get worse and worse as it continues to go down. And so if you are then looking at a home that you're about to purchase, you could look at it and be like, this home that I'm about to buy would fit right in the middle. It would likely make around 85,000, because it's better than this one doing 75,000, but it's not better than this one doing 100,000 because of XYZ reason, right? And so then that gives you the confidence to feel that the home you're looking at that you're about to purchase and put together as an Airbnb, you know where it's going to fall within the range of that market because of all of its features. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah? Okay.
Here's a trick that I'll do when I'm enemy methoding. I'll take, and this is not rocket science here. It's pretty much exactly what you should be doing. Just go through your enemy's listing and pick 25 random dates. Add them all up, divide them by 25. There's your average nightly rate. It's as simple as that. You know what I mean? People think too hard about this shit. I think 10 is probably not enough of a sample size, but 20, 25 numbers throughout the year. You know, January is going to really throw it off in this market. July is going to really throw it the other direction, but just 25, 30 random dates, divide them by 30. Pretty good. I mean, that's what I do. It's just that, you know. But,
I'll be honest, my whole body is like, I'm like, that scares the shit out of me. I'm not sure if I can say that's actually what I used to do when I first got started. And it didn't work well for me. I guess that's what made me such a freak over the data, because I screwed up, right? And like it didn't go well. And so I was like, it's gotta be a better method. And then I went too.
There is that. You got to have some confidence in whether that number is realistic or not, you know. So I'll give you that for sure. If you're just coming into this freaking cold and have no idea about anything, and you just heard Luke on a podcast say add up 25 numbers and divide it by 25, you could definitely screw yourself pretty hard. Right. But you know, if you've been knee deep in podcasts and paying attention and having AirDNA subscription, I do that all the time. I'm like, let me see what this guy's making. Let me see what his average nightly, or I'll do it to myself, you know, or do it to somebody come to me and say. In other words, I'll do it the reverse way, you know, where somebody will come to me and they'll say, Luke, I'm not getting enough bookings. And I'll go through their prices and pick 30 random prices and divide it by 30. And I'm like, do you really need, is this, because it's every single time. And Joe, I'm sure you see it too. They're priced too high. They're always priced too high. If they're not booked, if they're coming to me for help, they're priced too high. And so I'm like, okay, let's add up your prices and figure out what we're doing here for, you know, an average night. And then really opens their eyes a little bit. But yes, John, I totally understand. Yes. Be aware that you can totally screw yourself if you don't have any experience and you're running numbers that way.
Yeah. I just want to throw this out there to anyone who is newbie. I do have multiple free courses about Airbnb data on my YouTube channel. So if you really want to get in the weeds of it, you can just go binge my courses, which quite a few thousand people have done. So that's my recommendation for anyone who's like truly new, trying to figure it out. You can do that. And then once you've done that, then you can start adding up the random dates, the 25 dates, and figuring out the ADR.
And give advice to that same person that's watched 40 of your videos and is now, their head is blown up. How does he figure that out?
Would say that again?
That's what I mean. Like, you know, like advice to that brand new person who goes straight to your YouTube channel, watches all those videos, and then all of a sudden his head explodes because he's like, you know, again, analysis paralysis. How does he avoid that?
Well, okay. So all I'll say is that if you go from the start to the finish of the course, it's built to walk you through an entire process. If you stop halfway through, you're not going to get to the end where it sort of alleviates the analysis paralysis. By following the entire process, you get to it in a more straightforward answer. So it's only by going through the entire process that you actually get rid of the analysis paralysis. That's my opinion. And that's just what I know from my own personal experience.
Is there something to be said for just buy a house and see what it does in a year? Joe, go.
Go, Joe, buy a house and see what it does.
I'm just saying,
oh, man.
You know, at some point you just got to grab your nuts and run with it. You know what I mean? And buy a house and just move on, you know, and figure out, you know, again, you want to just buy a house and say, flip a coin and say, hopefully this does well.
I think it's a dichotomy of both. It's like you got to have all the data, and then at some point you just have to jump headfirst in and trust that the data is going to work. And so it's like really leveraging both those at the same time, because you're 100% right. We got two different ends of the spectrum here of like totally all numbers, and we've got totally, hey, just send it and it's going to happen. And it's like you got to have both. Of you find what works and you get comfortable with the numbers, and then you take that plunge, you go as hard as you can, and you run with the ball and just make it happen.
Well, what I appreciate about this discussion is that, you know, we are talking about very specific numbers, and then we're also talking about enemy method. You also have two seasoned, experienced investors in these markets that are agents, and we have a professional educator to help folks manage, so when you come to the short-term shop, you actually get all of those things, and you can have hard and fast numbers from, the AirDNA data, and then you've got your experts here to help you massage your listings and your help you get through those questions and kick your butt out of that analysis paralysis.
John, is there a particular bedroom size that you find might work a little better in this market?
I did do that. I did break it up. Give me 1 second here. So the 3 bedrooms in the OBX, I believe, are the ones that I like the most. I'm just triple checking. Yeah. So 3 bedrooms, I saw a better consistency of performing comparison to the 4 bedrooms, which is what I'm always curious about. Like, can a lower bedroom count, a smaller home, perform as well as a larger home? Because a larger home will be a little bit more expensive. And the 3 bedrooms did seem pretty interesting. Whereas in the OBX, that's Carolina Beach. So 3 bedrooms in Carolina Beach compared to the 4 bedrooms. In OBX, what I saw were that the 3 bedrooms were actually making quite a bit more than the 2 bedrooms. So I know I've talked about other markets where I'm like, hey, 2 bedrooms are doing better than 3s, like go for a 2 bedroom. But what I'm seeing is, if I were to be in the OBX, I probably would start at a 3 bedroom, just because of the difference. Or if I was deciding between a 2 or a 3 bedroom, I'd probably go for the 3 bedroom. That's what I saw.
Are there many 3 bedrooms in in your market? It seems mostly bigger homes, doesn't it?
No, we've got a pretty good mix. The condos are going to be predominantly 2, but you'll find 3 bedroom condos. But the beach boxes, which, there are probably more beach boxes than the big vacation rentals, all over. A lot of those are going to, you're going to start seeing more of those on the west side of the bypass. Kind of the slightly bigger houses are going to be on the east side. But there are lots of opportunities for 3 bedrooms between the highways, between Corolla and Nags Head, for sure. Absolutely.
I like 3 bedrooms that can operate like a 4, and then I can shove 6 families in there. So
how do you do that? At bunk beds, or what's the strategy there?
No, mine are mainly like ADUs, additional dwelling units, things like that. But
it has that when you purchase it, or you put it in?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have it when they purchase it.
So they're very common.
They're just, you got to look for them. They typically get listed as single family homes, and so you just have to have your eyes open.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, very interesting. All right, anything we missed here, John? You want to cover?
Well, just one last thing I want to say, that I always thoroughly love doing this with you, Luke, because like we are totally complete opposite sides of the spectrum, but then it both works, right? And so we always go, I feel like anyone who listens to this episode gets like both ends of the spectrum, and one's like, hey, just fucking dive in and make it happen. And the other person's like, to read through the data. I think we're both right. You know what I mean? You have to
absolutely.
And you have to, go through the data.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Pull the trigger eventually. I think that's the best advice you can give.
Different personalities, it's you're both right. But I'm definitely ready, fire, aim. Let's shoot the gun and then figure out how to get it on target.
Yeah.
But I could definitely benefit from some of your way of thinking. That's for sure.
Both ways for sure. Now I need to pull the trigger a little bit more often, So
I got no problem with that. I'm out there rapid fire. Let's do this. But so I'm the other way around. But okay, cool. Well, listen, always a pleasure. John, the Airbnb data guy. Meg, you're wonderful and lovely as always. And Joe, we'll see you guys on episode
Joe's
number 4.
Just here. Joe, thanks for being there.
Yeah. Clown car.
It's all right.
Okay, great. So thanks for hanging with us. Special episodes. We'll see you soon.
See you.